Happy St. Patrick's Day and welcome to episode 114 of the Walking Dead TV podcast. I'm Jordan from Jersey, and I'm joined tonight by the illustrative Aaron North and Jim Deets. How you guys doing?
Doing very well.
Hey, don't bother me. I'm over here looking at these wildflowers, guys.
Just keep looking at those flowers, Jim.
I'm looking at these wildflowers. I just can't stop looking at them.
So I use the word illustrative because one of our listeners, I'm going to apologize right now because I'm very white and it's St. Patrick's Day, which means there's been some imbibing, and my pronunciation may be off, but I believe you pronounced Shaylin Pennsylvania, who took 4 of us, Jim, Aaron, myself, and Russ, and illustrated pictures of us and posted them on our Walking Dead TV podcast Facebook group, which you should go check out right now if you haven't already, and they're awesome. So first off, thank you, sir, because they're really cool. They're so good. I thought that he had, just used an app or something or Photoshop to really quickly take a photograph and augment it into looking illustrated. But after looking at his Facebook page, this dude seems to be like a legit pen or marker or paint, etc. on canvas and paper artist. Not to put down digital artists because I can't do that either. But this seems to be like legit hardcore art, which is awesome.
I love it. I immediately made it my new Facebook profile picture, and I'll probably use it in other various profile picture forms in the near future as well. I think it's just I felt like it captured me perfectly. I looked at the twinkle in my eye, and I was like, yes, this is nailed it.
There's a certain joie de vivre in yours. There's a certain Ron Swanson-ish aspect to mine, and I like that because I like Ron Swanson. So thank you so much. My wife loves the drawing. It's great.
So yes, thank you very much, sir. I also made my Facebook poster. I also made a profile picture poster. I don't know if that's talking about it's the beer. Anyway, yeah, speaking of which, guys, anybody else drinking for St. Patrick's Day? What do you have?
I'm sober as a clam because I don't drink, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough.
And I'm having green tea because, I have children.
Well, fine. I'm having Hoegaarden because even though I am a quarter Irish, I prefer Belgian white beers because they're at least potable. Anyway.
I'm the exact opposite of Bob. I don't drink, and I have plenty of friends, and I don't walk around by myself. So there you
go. Tonight, we're not here to discuss alcohol, as interesting as that might be. We're here to discuss episode 414 of The Walking Dead, The Grove, which was directed by Michael E. Satrazemis and written by Scott M. Gimple, the current showrunner.
I'm going to the Grove tomorrow to see Divergent. That doesn't matter. I just wanted to say that.
I would avoid looking at any wildflowers.
Okay.
Or small children in general. Generally, just because you should always avoid small children at a movie theater.
If you find a box of mice, you might want to be worried about that.
It might be tough avoiding small children in the same movie Divergent, but we'll see what I can do.
That is true. My sister's very excited about that movie. She's a fan of the books. I can't say I share her enthusiasm after watching the trailer, but
I've read them, so I have no idea what to expect. Anyway, let's move
on. So I had originally thought from the scenes we saw last week in this week's episode that this was going to have Rick and Michonne and Carl in it as well, but no, this is a all Tyrese, Carol, Lizzie, Mika, and Judith episode.
I pretty much figured it would be this. Like, if we're going to get 1.5 Beth and Daryl episodes, I can only assume that Tyrese and the crew, the gang, would get their entire episode. And they did. So.
Well, I was after watching, I'm certainly very happy that that's what they did, but I'd also just kind of assumed that they'd be starting to meet up by this point.
Okay.
I think this is the most powerful episode we've had in this half of the season by far. With everything. Even though it's and like I said, last episode, I really appreciate the fact they're taking the time to do some character building, focusing on the smaller groups as they broke it apart rather than trying to shove everybody into every episode. And this is just a very powerful episode and very very brutal. And I'm still in kind of shock and awe that they did this on broadcast television.
I'm sure we'll get to this as we talk about the actual episode.
Actually, I plan on skipping the ending of this episode.
Okay, never mind. No, I certainly think there are 2 very good scenes in this episode. I think there's one obviously very shocking scene, but I can't say that it's a standout for me besides particular events that take place and what The Walking Dead's done so far in terms of shocking the audience with content. I want to bring up a quick thing too because I know there was, and not everyone follows these kind of reports. And I didn't even try to, but I know there's a lot of tweets and Facebook articles and essays and things about this episode's the one not to miss, and I don't know what that's supposed to mean to me. It feels like that's just a weird spoiler that implies someone's going to die as opposed to making the effort to just have you excited for the show. It seems like saying this week's the episode not to miss is well, this is the most popular show on TV right now. Obviously I wasn't going to skip it, and thanks for spoiling the fact that someone's probably going to die. I don't does that mean the other episodes suck compared to this one? I don't know what that's supposed to take away from it.
I just take away from it that's going to be one people are talking about at the water cooler or whatever.
Yeah, so it's why tell me? Why tell me that? That seems like spoil something for me.
Walking Dead is all about the fallout after the zombie apocalypse occurs. It's not another day after. It's 28 days later. It's about after that and how it impacts the people that survived. And this showing the way that it impacted on Lizzie and what the aftermath of that, and how it plays out and everything. I think it's very much in the spirit of what the book and the TV show really are about and should be about more. So that's why I like this episode. Plus, we got to see more Tyrese. We got to have a lot more of his character built up. We got a lot more good moments with Chad Coleman, really giving us a little more Tyrese rather than just a few grunts and stares off into the distance. Much like we had Michonne first, the season when she was all grumpy cat, and she came out and was kind of acting more, and we're getting to see more of her character. Now we're getting to see more of Tyrese, one of my favorite characters in the comic. So another reason I liked it.
He even took off his hat.
And he whipped out his hammer.
When he took off his hat, I literally exclaimed, "That comes off!" That's
so we start the episode with the 5 members of the cast that we signed our episode with, continuing their journey to Terminus along the railroad tracks. Carol and Tyrese discuss the probability of Mika and Lizzie's survival, and Carol notes that Mika is too gentle and Lizzie is confused about Walker's R. Yeah, no kidding.
I have 2 other alternate titles for The Grove. One was Of Mice and Mika, and the other is Flowers for Lizzie Non. I thought either of those were good substitutes.
And for any of our listeners who don't understand the reference, read a book.
Books.
They're what's
very cool. It's not even so much that she's confused about what walkers are, so she doesn't see them as something different.
Or dangerous.
Yes, or dangerous, exactly.
So they stop to rest, and Tyrese spots an advancing walker in the distance, but the walker falls and becomes trapped in between a couple of railroad ties. So Tyrese goes over to kill the walker, but Lizzie makes a humanistic plea to spare its life, and they end up doing so.
When that walker fell, it looked like he was kind of tripped. It was like, oh, that's, walker trip. But when they got to it, it was really messed up. Its arm was broken. It couldn't get up at all. Its legs, I assume, were broken too. It must have been a really kind of older, frail zombie at that. Even though the person itself didn't look like an old man turned into a zombie. It was kind of a weaker zombie, per se.
Now, so you say it looked like it just tripped. I actually thought it looked like somebody was physically pulling it down. I was assuming that some group was going to come out that had trapped it in some kind of not pit necessarily, but a snare of some type. But yeah, I agree. It really did. It went down hard when we finally saw it.
I could agree with you on the kind of what it looked like, because I for a second did think there was some kind of a hole or some kind of trap that it fell into, but I don't think I got to. It just fell.
And that's why we don't walk on railroad ties.
That's the reason.
Because of walkers.
Yep.
Carol and Mika go out on a little scouting trip to find some food, and they find a house in the middle of a pecan grove, and they send for Tyrese, Lizzie, and Judith. And Carol suggests staying there for a few days to rest, so she and Tyrese leave the girls outside while they clear the house, but once they go inside, a walker appears, and Mika shoots it in the head as Lizzie looks on in tears.
Yeah, so for this episode, I think I'll try to take a picture and put this on the Facebook page. I take notes every episode. And on the side margin, I have a little thing that says Lizzie is bonkers, and I put a little check mark for every time she did something or said something that bonkers to me. And I have 22 check marks for this episode.
Yeah, I think after watching this episode, it's pretty clear, and I'm not a doctor of psychology or anything like that, but that Lizzie seems to me to be a psychopath, as opposed to a sociopath like you might have with Dexter or Sherlock Holmes or something like that. And they really went through, like you're saying check marks, but like if they were literally checking off things that make a psychopath, it seemed to me like they were hitting pretty much all of those boxes.
Yeah, torturing small animals, dissection, ability to see differences between the walkers and the humans.
Poor control over emotions, not really being able to tell why someone was mad at them, but still being super upset about it. That kind of stuff. Like, yeah, she was goofy. And I gotta say, I never really had strong thoughts about Mika one way or the other previous to this episode. I think maybe the first episode we saw her, I didn't love her acting. I kind of really liked her in this episode, and I've heard a lot of people say the exact opposite. But for whatever reason, I for the first time found her somewhat endearing in this episode.
I'm sorry, we're saying that for Lizzie?
No, for Mika.
Oh, for Mika. I would agree with you that I think Mika was effective. I actually wasn't a huge fan of Lizzie's performance in this episode, but I'll get to why, I guess, which is somewhat on a writing thing as well.
So the next day, Carol's in the house, and she spots Lizzie happily playing tag with a walker in the yard. We actually see the scene twice. It's our cold open of the episode as well, and the scene we'd seen during Talking Dead last week. Super creepy. You've got what sounds like a record player playing a kind of a Bioshock type feel as Lizzie just plays tag with a walker. And so Carol rushes outside when she sees what's happening. She kills the walker, but Lizzie screams at Carol, saying the walker was her friend.
Yeah, there were like 2 check marks I put down on that one.
Yes, at least we're 2 check marks.
My God, like, where to begin with this kind of scene? Like, yeah, the cold open was awesome. I thought it was a great kind of tone setter in general for just the show. I wish all the episodes would end with open kind of a wordless visual image of some kind.
And a really short cold open too. It's like 45 seconds long, probably the shortest we've had.
It reminded me of Breaking Bad season 2, where it kind of had that opening, kind of mysterious, like what's going on.
Oh yeah, the black and white openings.
Yes, but like how just. I like that the show did something like that to just further get us on the side of like, oh my God, what's going on with this girl? But like, how did this like whole thing like play? Did you just like find one outside, and, like bring it in, and somehow not get bitten by this? Like, it's a miracle that this little girl didn't get bitten by this zombie.
She's faster than a zombie.
I guess, but like, I don't get this thought process. And I know I'm not supposed to, but dear God, playing tag or bite, as I'm sure she called it. It's just like,
well, that's how we know you're not a psychopath. So good.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Meanwhile, little Mika, like she's playing with Griselda Gunderson and having
best
a great
name
time.
ever, by the way. I want the Griselda Gunderson spinoff show. She better be in the Walking Dead spinoff.
With a dog.
Was it before this? We see it several times, but I forget exactly when the first note of it was that they see the smoke off in the distance.
I think it was when they first got there. They said they smelled smoke, and they saw it like a few scenes later.
I guess it's Mika who points out, oh, that means the fire stopped because the smoke is white. And I've seen a lot of people speculate.
That happened at the end.
That's at the end. They said, actually, Mika says the opposite. The smoke is black, and that they must still be burning. I love science.
Oh, okay, and then
that
Carol.
was when her and Carol were out looking for the deer.
Right. Okay, which happens right next. So yeah, they're out looking for the deer, or they're out just scouting the forest. They come across a deer. Reminiscent of the beginning of season 2 with Carl and everything like that. Mika aims her gun at the deer, but is unable to pull the trigger, much to the disappointment of Carol. And the duo return to the house and find Tyrese pumping water. And he suggests they settle at this location instead of continuing towards Terminus. So we got a lot of stuff there. First off with the smoke, and I think you're right. Here's where Mika says, oh, it's the fire still burning because it's black, and it's later Carol says, oh, the fire's not burning anymore because the smoke is white. But my point in bringing that up in the first place was I've seen a lot of speculation that that's actually smoke from the fire that Beth and Daryl lit last week, or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, from that farmhouse.
And that they're really, really close to each other, or at least were at that time, since we have no idea where Beth is, or where Daryl is, and that was, at this point, the fire's out.
Yeah, I think it's just completely obvious that that's the case. I mean, there's no other reason to show that smoke other than that, unless the next episode wants to really seriously prove me wrong, but I don't.
Well, I mean, it could have just been setting up the awesome half-burned zombies. You know, just on fire. But I agree with it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, given, I mean, obviously the relative location of everybody around where they are, given with the tracks and everything, and how they're bound to meet up with each other once again, and the fact that they, you can't just by TV and movie logic alone, you can't just set a giant fire one week and then not pay any attention to it in previous weeks, despite bringing up a very similar smoke aspect of it. I'm surprised the fire didn't spread lighter, but whatever.
That's also known as Chekhov's giant fire rule.
Yeah, that one. That's chapter 7, page 19 of movie 101.
Yeah, you can't set a giant fire on stage in Act 1 without having somebody burned by Act 3. Yeah. Probably the audience.
I meant to mention this earlier. A lot of gunshots next to babies that I was kind of irritated by in this episode, but necessity, I guess, whatever.
So, Carol, what do you think of Carol and Mika's discussion all about, it was where Carol first told Mika about Sophia, that she even had a daughter, that Mika was a lot like Sophia, and that they were both too gentle, I guess would be the right term, for their own good, and that Mika needs to toughen up, because Mika has no problem shooting the living if she has to. She doesn't want to, but if she has to, like we saw at the prison attack, she is able to. But she has a real hard time shooting the dead. Or no, do I have that backwards?
Yeah, the backwards. Yeah, she has no problem. She's able to shoot zombies and walkers, but she doesn't want to shoot any actual people, because that is, to her, as she says, is wrong.
And she even makes, I forget who exactly makes the point, but the point of, even if you have to kill sometimes, doesn't mean you should have to kill all the time.
What I like about this scene and other scenes in general that aren't the last two, which we'll get to, is that Melissa McBride's really selling the role. I personally think the dialogue is rather weak in most of this episode, which is why I'm not elevating it to something higher because of great things that happen later on. But it's because of McBride that I wasn't like, not that I was like throwing my head against the wall or something like, oh my God, get better. But I mean, I appreciate what she was bringing as an actress to a script that I just don't think was really getting the nuances across without just spelling out plainly what's going through characters' mind, having that exit through their mouths.
I agree that I think the actors do more. The actors, I think, do more work for the script than the script does for them.
Yeah,
even though Jack Coleman's Tyrese, I mean, he makes the best of the lines that are given him and gives them a gravitas, especially at the very end scene when they're at the table together. The dialogue, I think they're acting beyond what they're being written. You know what I mean? And like you said, Melissa McBride is great in this episode. I think all the performances are great, both the kids, for what they are and what they have to portray. I mean, but I agree the dialogue isn't as strong as it could be, but I think they all sell it fairly well.
Later that afternoon, Lizzie is wandering on the railroad tracks with Mika giving chase, and Lizzie has a shoebox, I guess, that she opens up and pulls out a mouse, and she goes over to that walker from earlier that fell on the tracks and they opted not to kill, and she feeds the walker the mouse, which is gross, and Mika tells her pretty much exactly that. But Lizzie insists the walkers want her being Lizzie, to change, and she reaches for the walker's mouse with an outstretched finger, almost like she wants it to bite her. But at that moment, one of my favorite scenes from the episode, walkers emerge from the woods, from the direction of the fire. I think we can even see the smoke in the background. Some of these walkers are like completely charred, others are just partly charred, but there's smoke rising off them. Their skin is charred, and you can see like bloody parts to it where it's cracked and pulled away. It just looks awesome. So they scream, unsurprisingly, and they run back to the house.
They kind of look like Peter Jackson orcs.
Yeah, Orkai.
Yeah, like
fair, yeah. They look great. That's what they look like. Like there was we've seen our share of different stages of walkers and whatnot, given the environments they've been in or the various things they've encountered that affected the way they look. And yeah, the Kentucky Fried Zombies, as I was calling them in this episode, they really they look great. Nick Terrell and his team once again just really deliver on something special.
It's a zombie queue.
Yeah. So, like I said, they run back to the house and screaming. So Tyrese and Carol hear that. They run to the aid of the girls, and the four of them form a line and shoot walkers, including Lizzie, who, like we said earlier, has problems shooting the walkers. And even Carol looks at her and I believe kind of smiles a little at seeing that Lizzie is shooting the walkers, at least to protect herself. And she seems to, at that point, think that Lizzie's making some progress. Spoiler, she's not. But
this scene actually confused me a bit. Besides, like, hey, look, that's cool, they're shooting the zombies. Like, the Lizzie shooting at walkers thing, I don't think the direction quite showed me if she was, like, actually hitting them or if she was just shooting around them to make it look like she was putting in the effort or what. Like, I couldn't quite get a grip on what the scene was trying to tell me about Lizzie in it.
Lizzie's a lot of things, but I don't get the impression that she's manipulative. She's so convinced she's correct that I don't think she would go out of her way to fake it, because she doesn't think she has to. She doesn't understand why she would even need to, if that makes sense.
That's fair. I will commend this episode for one thing. Remember, like, season 2 when they're, like, taking out shotguns like 50 yards away and getting nothing but headshots? This episode, like, they're hitting them they're, like, you know, much closer. They're hitting them in the shoulders and the legs, and then they hit them in the head. So at least there seems to be some, like, there seems to be some acknowledgement that maybe not everyone's a perfect shot every damn time on the show, and we can actually miss now and again.
And the hits were awesome because they were so charred. They even called it on Talking Dead, I think, like a charcoal effect, but they were just kind of exploding in like a black smoke whenever you hit them. Like a big piece of pieces would fly off because they were so badly damaged before the bullets even hit them. It was really cool looking.
It was like watching Blade take down vampires in a
yeah. Slightly less swords, but yes.
But not Blade 3.
I was playing techno music in the back of the scene the second time I watched the episode, though, so it was great.
Exactly. I'm thinking that Blade soundtrack.
So then Carol and Tyrese go on a hike around the house. I think they're getting water out of the well on the property, and they have a nice conversation. Oh, kind of nice, but it's kind of a dark conversation as well, where they're talking about maybe living there with the girls and maybe just starting over, and Carol's starting to come around on the idea. And Tyrese also brings up Karen and David and how, you know, he still has these nightmares about that moment, about that day. We see one of those early in the episode, even when he's asleep and he wakes up from a nightmare. But you know, he talks about wondering if it was just a stranger who came in and killed them, and how there's just this horrible idea that a stranger could just come and kill you in your sleep, etc. and so forth. And there's a really long shot, like probably a minute and a half, where Carol is not looking at him, and you feel like at any moment she's going to turn around and just confess to what she did, or what she had at least earlier told Rick she had did of killing Karen and David, but she doesn't.
We'll get to how I was wrong with my Carol theory and how upset I am about it, but
It was still a good theory.
Yeah, it was a great theory. I still thought it was viable.
Well, I mean, the only problem I have is that it just makes me dislike the episode the same way I disliked them early on in the beginning part of the season. But we'll get to that. What I do want to mention is that every time Tyrese is like mentioning about his days with Karen and how he imagines that it could have been something and blah blah blah, like it just reminds me of how little I care about Karen and that relationship because I just saw none of it. So like, shut up, Tyrese. I'm glad you're doing a good job emoting, but I didn't care then. And I don't really care now. I get that you're still hurting, but
at least he's given something to do, which is nice.
That's fair. But the show, if the show handled things differently from the outset, then I wouldn't have had a problem with it. I mean, it's telling me what I'm supposed to feel, and that's not the best way to handle things.
They come back from their trip to get water from the well, and they find Lizzie standing there. And you can see Judith even in the long shot, because I went back and rewatched this. Judith is fine, but Lizzie's hands are covered in blood, and she's holding a knife, and we see that Mika is dead on the ground. But Lizzie insists, oh, no, don't worry, Mika will be okay. I didn't hurt the brain. This is a direct quote from the comic, actually. In a slightly, not a different context, different characters, but it is a direct quote. And she reveals that she was going to do the same to Judith, but they just got back. And I love and cringe at in a good way, but all at the same time, Carol's response and Lizzie's response to Carol's response of, Lizzie, she can't even walk yet.
Yeah, that was a...
And just Lizzie's look of, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like, just the logic of, oh, yeah, you wouldn't want her to turn when she can't even walk. It was so creepy, but so spot on for what they were doing with the character, I thought. But clearly, Carol and Tyrese are stunned. They don't know exactly what to do. Lizzie pulls a gun on Carol when Carol walks up to her because she thinks Carol is going to re-kill, if you will, Mika. And she makes Carol promise that she won't do that. And Carol does promise. She says she's going to tie her up with her shoelaces and it'll be fine. Pinky swear, all that kind of stuff. Tyrese, Judith, and Lizzie go into the house and we see Carol pull out her knife. And I don't think we actually see her stab Mika in the brain because it goes commercial, but it's pretty clear that happens.
There's a good, really good acting moment there, though, from Melissa McBride, where she, you know, she's kind of just standing there for just a minute before she takes her knife out or whatever, make sure, you know, that Lizzie is clear, you know, she's not going to see what she's going to do.
And she's like putting on her best fake smile for Lizzie, so Lizzie doesn't think anything's
right, exactly. And then immediately shifts to, like, you know, just trying not to break down and do what she has to do. I thought it was a really good scene.
It's one of the instances where you let the actors show you what they're doing without explicitly telling you in this episode, which is something I liked. Because, yeah, no one needs to see that, and you get it. You don't need to be told it was Lizzie feeding the rest the whole time. You don't need a scene like that. So obviously we got to back up and talk about this this thing that happened. It's shocking. Not necessarily shocking to those of us who've read the comics, but I mean,
I've been calling this for 10 episodes now?
Yeah, but there's certainly a, you know, regardless of knowing that was going to happen or not, there's certainly a gut punch feeling you get when you see the image of a little girl, bloody hand, standing over her dead sister, and
smiling, like super proud of what she just did.
And it, like, emotion-wise, like, yeah, it got to me. It, like, it maybe, you know, it got the desired effect out of me, and it's effectively shot, and everyone around there is acting the way they need to, and it looks morbid as hell. I have minor quibbles with this. I wonder, so Mika clearly gets that Lizzie's, like, you know, not right. She's seen this. She's nothing but talking about this episode for the sake of this episode. That's the purpose. Yet, like, what position are we in where all three of them are left by their lonesome, and Mika's willing to, I guess, lay down and keep her eyes closed or something, and Lizzie's unable to kill? Like, I don't know what the situation would be that would lead up to this working as well as it did for her.
All she has to do is come up behind her and stab her in the back.
Well, but given her general nature, it doesn't seem like she's, you know, out to sneak up on her sister and kill her. It seems more like she'd ask her politely if she could lay down and do so. And I don't know if I can believe that.
Or maybe Mika was taking a nap. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we didn't see
the
it.
Napping I maybe, I guess. I get it. It's shortcuts that they're being taken to get to these shocking moments, and these moments are supposed to hit you hard. And I'd like to be happy with just sitting tough and being like, okay, that was brutal, man. I should really focus on how that's important. But there's a side of my brain that doesn't want to take away from the fact that we're kind of being cheated out of certain logic gaps here in order to get to those important scenes.
I get what you're saying, but for us to see that, you'd have to have the scene of her pulling out a knife and telling her sister, or asking her sister to lay down, or whatever it might have been, which then completely undercuts the, oh my gosh, WTF, what's going on, of Carol and Tyrese coming back from the well all hunky-dory to find what they find. I mean, for us as comic readers, yeah, we knew this was coming. Although I did have some suspicions they might tweak it a little bit, but that's beside the point. We knew this was coming, but for everybody else, if you have any scene like that of contextualizing it, it totally undercuts that surprise.
Well, yeah, and that's why it can't be. Yeah, obviously you're going to undercut the shock value if you show something like that. So it's just a matter of the steps leading up to something like this aren't quite as well realized as they could have been in other shows that have done a good job of kind of having a shock value without you having to question the internal logic of the series itself to get to that point. Like Game of Thrones is a perfect example of that, where you can get shocking value, but you don't go back and second guess what led up to those things because the show's done a good job of presenting you with situations where you don't feel the need to question it.
I get what you're saying, but I also don't see any need to question this particular one. Like, to me, it just worked, but that's just me.
I get it. Again, from an emotional standpoint, yeah, it worked, and like I like the episode overall. And again, it comes down to the actors and the fact that we're seeing on screen and on a very popular TV show, where everyone watches, like, you can only do so much and please so many people at one time. But yeah, it was effective for what it needed to do at the time.
don't know, just the idea of one child killing another was like pretty, just like shock value for me. And I understand what you're saying. That it didn't, you show us all the logic points, along the way, but it didn't really sit that poorly with me as it revealed itself. The thing that bothered me, and I know we're getting to that, but at the end of the episode, when I know we're getting I'm getting ahead of ourselves, or whatever, but when there were 3 graves, but like Judith is saved, right?
Oh yeah, there was a grave there when they got to the property. We saw it a few times in the background with the shoes on it.
Oh, okay, I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, Tyrese is on kind of a Baby Bjorn backpack type thing on Tyrese's back by the end of the episode. But if you weren't looking for it, you probably wouldn't see it. It is because they're using a dummy in situations like that and not an actual baby. They keep the head covered most of the time, and it could just be any other pack unless you know that's what it is.
Because in this scene, they made a point of having a shot of Judith, to show that she was alive.
Oh yes, they were very clear.
Yeah, they were very clear that Judith was still alive. But then at the end of it, they showed the 3 graves. I'm like, wait a minute, did I miss something? That was like, you say Aaron, you had quittles. That was probably mine. Like, I guess I didn't catch the grave when they showed it earlier.
I mean, yeah, it's like I saw some questioning about where Judith was, and what it comes down to is the show is so obvious when it wants to tell you something. It'd be very clear if it wanted to explain that Judith died, and obviously they didn't show Judith dying. So yeah, that was never a thought that crossed my mind at that point.
So that night, Tyrese and Carol sit down at the table, and Tyrese says, he talked to Lizzie, he cleaned out a room to make sure there was no, knives or guns or anything else of the sort. He found out from Lizzie that she was definitely the one feeding the prison walkers, which again we pretty much knew, but now it's 100% she admitted to it. And he tells Carol about the vivisected rabbit that he had found in the prison right before the governor attacked, and he wonders, what if Lizzie killed Karen and David? And Carol quickly says, she couldn't have had the strength to move the bodies, and the whole point of her thing is to let them reanimate, so it wouldn't make sense. And Tyrese suggests that he would leave with Judith to protect her from Lizzie, and just let Carol stay with her, and she says, well, you wouldn't survive out there on your own, and they kind of also pitch the opposite of her leaving with Lizzie, and that wouldn't work either. And they finally come to the realization that Judith is going to need both of them to survive, and Lizzie is just too dangerous to be around other people. And they kind of silently and reluctantly agree what has to happen next.
The kind of first half of the scene is kind of like least favorite part of this episode, because it's just like it's Tyrese's position where he's just saying everything out loud that's been visually confirmed with us throughout the episode or implied or whatnot. And I feel like the show's almost not crediting its audience well enough to say that, hey, we get that you get this, like let's leave that alone. Instead we have a whole scene of Tyrese explaining, so Lizzie was the one that was feeding and here's the like it's just I don't understand why the show doesn't trust it.
I don't think that's what it is though. I think it's because if they didn't do that, then people would be asking, well, why didn't Tyrese put 2 and 2 together that this is what happened? And now we have them saying, I put 2 and 2 together.
Yeah, I get that, and that's why the second half of the scene works better, just because it leads to another conversation about the Karen and David thing, and that needs to come back at the end of this episode. So it's obviously setting up other things that still need to occur in this episode involving the Carol and Tyrese tension, so they can wrap up that arc before we move on to more characters. We don't have time for it anymore. So like I get what it needs to do. It just feels clumsy, and that's a word that I've used a lot this season when it gets to something specifically with Carol and Tyrese. Actually, I mean, we talked about issues before. I know Russ and I have actually talked about issues before with the lead up to things that Carol's done and the lead up to ways Tyrese has reacted to the events that have occurred early on in the season, which are now having the kind of the end of that arc, given that we tie up a lot of these things involving mysterious deaths, rat feeding, and who's responsible for what. So yeah, it gets to the scene of maybe he killed Karen and David, and Carol responds with what she responds with, which still didn't cancel out my theory necessarily. So I was kind of still banking on it, but it does just show the strengths of the writing to me versus what the actors are giving. It just feels like there's a lot of examples of that in this episode, which was written by. I can stop for now. Sorry.
I understand what they were saying about the dialogue not being as strong as it could be, but I thought the acting was spot on in a lot of these scenes. I realized there was some delivery of exposition because Tyrese, it's not so much that Tyrese, what happened is what Tyrese knows as opposed to what Tyrese doesn't know. And then we finally have the scene together when they're together at the table with a puzzle or whatever. The dialogue, I can understand why you think it sounded clumsy or whatever, or not to par or what have you. But I thought the acting really sold it for me beyond what was there in the script. So as far as the way they deal with Lizzie, I mean, what other way would they have? What other course of it?
It's funny you say that, because I thought like perhaps they just did her in the night, like they let her go to sleep and they just kind of leave her there. I thought that was a potential option. I get that what they do go through is quote unquote more effective or whatnot, but I did consider like what options are there? Yeah, there's not many. Like we can't stay with her. Obviously,
I mean, I would argue that just leaving her would be exceptionally cruel because we know she would feel the pain from that and she wouldn't understand why it was happening. At least with what happens, and we'll get to this, but she doesn't know what's about to happen and it's just over. Like she doesn't have to feel the pain. She doesn't have to wonder why are mommy and daddy mad at me, etc. Did I cause the divorce? That type of thing. It's just you can't explain to her what is wrong. She is a psychopath. She will not understand. As far as I'm concerned, in this post-apocalyptic world where there's no medication, insane asylum, or whatever course of action you might take in 2014 in the real world now, with those options taken away, this was probably the most compassionate thing they could do.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like at the end of the day, that is where it comes down to. Yeah, leaving her there would be obviously cruel, but I mean, the word cruel has a different context in this world at some point. So like, if I have to weigh killing a little girl over leaving a little girl by her lonesome, it's hard to say that out loud and be like, yeah, I guess killing her seems like a better choice in this matter. But yeah, I mean,
you're killing her either way. Let's be honest. She's going to die either way.
Yeah, she'll either by letting herself be bitten or by simply starving to death or whatever. I mean, we see the scene earlier where she's on the railroad track and she's like toying with the trapped walker and almost gets bitten herself. Say, oh, I wonder what it'll be like to change. And I mean, you're keeping another zombie from being created. Or
I mean, worse. And I don't want to go into this because it's too dark even for this show, I think. But we've seen the gangs of marauders that are around, and I would not want to leave a little girl around by her lonesome in a situation like that. Like even if she doesn't just die from starvation or get bitten or offers herself up to be bitten, there are even worse things that could happen to this person if you leave her alone.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
I mean, that's logic that almost appeals to the comic more than the show, just because we haven't. Rapey is not a term I use to describe the show, but rapey I can say is a term that can be placed in the comic a lot.
I would say, without getting into spoilers, the scene we see on Talking Dead for next week pretty much confirms that is a real concern in the show as well. And believe me, that does not spoil anything, but yeah, it's a concern.
It implies that are out there. That's what I got from that scene.
Well, yes, I mean, and that's true to the real world as well. But no, so if you listen to specifically what that guy was talking about, yeah, not good.
Yeah, I guess I honestly try not. When it comes to those, like, here's the next scene, I just kind of turn it down and look away.
Let's finish out the episode and then go back into some conversation. So the following morning, Carol takes Lizzie out for a walk and says she needs to talk to her about some things. And they go out into the grove and there's some yellow wildflowers there. Lizzie can tell that something's off with Carol, and so she starts to cry and plead with Carol not to be mad at her anymore. And she apologizes. Is it because I pulled a gun on you? I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I just had to prove to you I was right, etc. and so forth.
No, she doesn't apologize for killing her own sister.
Oh no, because why would she? She was right about that.
She apologizes for pulling a gun on Carol.
Exactly. And so Carol just tells her, just look at the flowers, Lizzie, just look at the pretty flowers, which is something that's been shown several times throughout the series, actually. If you go all the way back to episode 402, just look at the flowers and count to 3 is a thing that Mika has been doing with Lizzie since before apparently we've even seen them on the show. That is a standard calm down technique for the two sisters, specifically for Lizzie. Carol tells her just look at the flowers, and again, we get a really long shot of Carol as she has to do what she has to do. She slowly pulls out a gun as Lizzie is looking at the flowers and still kind of crying about Carol being mad at her for pulling the gun. And we don't see the shot, but we hear it, and then we later see out the window Lizzie's body fall as Carol shoots Lizzie in the head, and Tyrese is looking from the window, and later we see them bury the two girls next to each other, and next to that third grave that was their house.
I've been wrongly saying that it's Carol 1, Rick 2 as far as little girls go, but actually I guess Carol did take out reanimated Mika, or at least before she had a chance to reanimate Mika. So it is kind of tied Carol 2, Rick 2 for little girls.
Oh, man.
Well, that's cheery.
Yeah, Mr. Happy over here.
This is the first of 2 just fantastic scenes I think overall in this episode. I think the scene in the final scene of the episode it's to the point where I feel like these are the 2 scenes that they came up with first and they worked backwards from here. And I wouldn't be surprised if that actually holds water. But everything McBride's doing, I think Lizzie, this is the chance for her to really shine as a young actress in the show, and just what she's kind of giving to what McBride's giving. Like both of them are doing some great work here and making the scene play in the way it does. It's obviously a sad state of affairs and it's brutal and it's uncompromising and fits with the kind of the darker side of what a show called The Walking Dead would have to offer. But I mean, it's shot well. I think that this is where the writing shines the best, I would say, instead of this in the following scene. I mean, it all worked for me. This is a good encapsulation of what The Walking Dead comes down to.
Like we said, it's kind of a brutal, dark, really place for this episode to end up. But almost, I don't know, it seemed like kind of predestined with all the foreshadowing we've seen of Lizzie's behavior over the past season. So, but I don't know, it worked for me too. Like the last 2 scenes here, as I mentioned, the acting really carried it over for me. More so than the actual exposition and words they were saying. I think Melissa McBride and Jack Holman are both really good in these roles. I was happy to see this get resolved over the table with Carol and Tyrese. And I'm glad to see more of Tyrese as a person, as a character. We just see him bits and pieces here and there. We haven't really got to spend some time with the character and actually kind of give him a little more depth. Because the comic is such a rich character and one of my favorites in the whole story. So I guess I hold him to that yardstick as I watch the character in the show.
So for the final scene of the episode that we've been hinting at, Carol and Tyrese sit down at the table where there's a puzzle that they've been working on throughout the episode, which we learned on Talking Dead was actually a picture of Sophia, if you were to actually complete the puzzle, which is kind of a cool little Easter egg. But Carol tells Tyrese, well, first she gives him her gun, she takes her gun out, she puts it on the table, on his side of the table, and she admits to killing Karen and David. She explains she had to contain the illness. It wasn't a pleasant thing to do, she didn't want to do it, but it had to be done. And just like with Lizzie, she does what has to be done, even if it's not the pleasant or most acceptable thing to do. And she tells Tyrese, I'm sorry, but you do what you have to do now that you know. And he's very upset at first. He even grips the gun. He doesn't pick it up, but he grips it in his hand. Then when he sees what he's done by even holding the gun, he kind of quickly releases it and moves his hand away. And he tells her he forgives her. He will never forget what she did, but he knows that she never will either, that will live with her the rest of her life, but he forgives her. And the next day, Tyrese, Carol, and Judith leave the Grove, and they continue their journey to Terminus. And that ends episode 414, The Grove.
So yeah, this is obviously the other scene that I've been talking about, and I think it disproves my Carol theory. To recap once again, I thought Carol was responsible for the deaths of Karen and David, or I'm sorry, Lizzie was responsible for the deaths of Karen and David, and Carol simply just moved the bodies and burned them, which not a pleasant thing either. But it would have made more sense to me from a narrative standpoint, given the behavior of characters early on in the season. What bugs me about that not being true is that just still means I have issues with the season as a whole by having it have to take shortcuts to get to certain points, given obviously time constraints and how much we can pack in one episode. Like if there are lead scenes that explain things that are good for them, but obviously what I see is what I got, and I had issues with it. And yes, we have outcomes that work out for the better, because the preceding episode that had Rick and Carol dealing with what Carol admitted to Rick, and now this episode with these ending scenes, that's the fallout of what happened early on, and I like that. I like the sum of the parts, but getting there. The pieces involved in making up that final product, I can't say I'm completely on board with it. At the same time, yeah, as we've been saying, Bride makes it work, and Jack Holman's great with his World's Tyrese in this episode as well. So it worked out for the better, but it makes me somewhat annoyed that people are going to gloss over the fact that it wasn't the best way to get to this point. And I'd love to just shower praise on the episode because I think it's well acted and whatnot, but I do find issues, and so I'm just trying to point that out. But overall, these final scenes, they worked for what they did. I think I can commend that aspect. I can commend that for sure.
Also, in retrospect, and I gotta say, I think I've said this before, Aaron, but I love your theory about what it could have been with Lizzie killing them and Carol covering it up. That said, in retrospect, seeing what they were leading to with this, I don't think that would have worked in the long run. And granted, it would have made those earlier episodes better, those earlier scenes better. But if Carol had known that Lizzie was willing to kill people for no good reason, or for any reason really like that, so coldly, I don't think this episode could have ever happened, because she would have never let her be alone with the other girls. She would have never trusted her on her own. All that kind of stuff. The murder of Mika, the actions by Lizzie had to surprise even Carol, and I don't think she could have been surprised if she'd already covered up 2 murders for her. As much as I like that theory,
I agree, and I have no doubt that I'd find holes even if my theory did come to fruition. And I imagine also, it just generally be handled differently were that to be the way that this episode was going.
That's true. Yeah.
It's just a matter of the show would be it'd be doing a better job of hiding its hand, I guess, if it did do something that approached where I thought it could have been going, as opposed to a more inevitable route that ties in with the comics. Yes, so good for that, but it doesn't quite beyond the shock value. Doesn't really introduce a whole lot new, I guess, beyond just giving an example of good acting and characters that have gotten expanded upon, which is great. That's great, but there are other ways the show could handle something like that, I guess, and it's satisfying to an extent, but not making me go over the moon for it.
Yeah, I think Jordan makes a good point as far as the logic. If she already knew Lizzie was capable of killing 2 adults while they were sick or whatever, and was covering that up ever since then, I would think she would have done something about Lizzie, not left her alone with Mika ever, or done something about that long before. Like Jordan said, the shock of what she does to Mika wouldn't have been there because she would have been expecting it all along. But it was a good theory. But when Carol owns up to what she's done to Tyrese, I didn't know what to expect in that scene, whether Tyrese is going to take out his anger on her or not. But I just thought the way that it played out, and just like I hate to use the word again, but just the gravitas in his voice when he tells her he forgave her, but she had to live with it, and he knows that she will. And so I thought that was a well acted scene. So
it also worked well in that I don't know that he necessarily would have forgiven her if he hadn't seen what she just had to do with Lizzie. But seeing that she, in that other situation, also had to do a very unpleasant thing because it was the right thing to do, it all made it kind of work, I think, in his head enough to let him forgive her. Yeah. It's hard to say because we don't know enough about TV Tyrese and whether he's a forgiving person or how he feels about these types of things in general, but I still would have had a harder time believing it. Or I shouldn't say that, but I have an easier time believing that he forgives her because of what had transpired in the previous scenes.
Yeah, and that's where it comes down to like an overall, not a problem, but a thing to remark upon involving The Walking Dead, where if you separate these story arcs out of the rest of the season, it's 3 episodes, 4 episodes total that explicitly deal with these plot lines, and you can only do so much with the amount of time they're given. So obviously the show's doing the best it can in a cast that's there's 8 main players maybe, and then some supporting actors. Like there's a lot of people to keep track of, and it has to do what it can. So I understand the difficulty in finding that balance, and if it has to take a few shortcuts to get to some well-acted scenes at the end of their arcs to complete them, then yeah, I'm going to point out the flaws I see, but I'm also not discounting the quality of the acting and the quality of certain scenes within the series. Obviously, as I mentioned, Carol and Rick having a discussion about things, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was interesting. I thought it was well acted and well written. A scene with Tyrese and Carol coming to terms with what happened, I also think is well acted, well written, and well executed. So I mean, this is why I like doing this podcast with you guys. Obviously, I have a different opinion to an extent than some of you guys, but we're having a good time talking about it. We're examining the show, not just we're not just heaping praise on it for blindly. We're giving good reasons to support why we like or dislike certain things about it. So I mean, overall, yeah, I think it had some bumps in the road getting there, but the destination was reached, and I can appreciate that.
Make a good point. It's obvious we're fans of the comic and the show, but I mean, we are Pollyanna. I mean, if there's an episode we don't like, we'll let people know. I know I do.
So that's it for the episode discussion. Of course, we're going to give our Buster ratings here in a second. But before then, Aaron, do you like comic books?
I love comic books, Jordan.
Jim, what about you? Do you like comics?
Comics are why I live.
What about comic-related merchandise, like posters and DVDs and T-shirts and kilts?
I can barely sit down because my kilt is so comfortable. I just want to stand up and let the wind flow.
My real problem, Jordan, is that I can't afford all of the comic books and comic book related merchandise that I would like to own.
Well, I understand comics can be expensive, especially in this day and age, but if you want to save awesome amounts of money on your comics and comic-related merchandise, you know where you need to go?
Please enlighten me.
You need to go to dcbservice.com. That's dcbservice.com. They're one of our favorite companies out there because they sponsor our show, but also because they're an awesome company where you can get deep discounts on the newest comic books out there. They also have their sister site, InStockTrades.com, where you can get trade paperbacks, so like the 6 to 10 issue collections of comics out there. Head to dcbservice.com, head to InStockTrades.com, check out all the great merchandise. If you like The Walking Dead, which I'm assuming you do, you're listening to this, you can pick up the individual comics, you can pick up the trades, the omnibus editions, or the compendiums, I guess they call them, T-shirts, all kinds of stuff, posters. If you can imagine, there's a good chance they have it. Kilts, I'm not 100% sure about. That was a joke. But just about anything else, you can find it. In addition, if you're looking forward to Captain America 2, Captain America: Winter Soldier that's coming out, there's a brand new Winter Soldier series that either just launched or is about to launch that I'm hearing great things about. You get that there at a great deep discount. DC stuff as well. Batman vs Superman coming out at some point theoretically. They have all the great stuff out there you can think of comic book wise. Comic book related merchandise, and InStock Trades has the trade collected editions. Head there, let them know we sent you. You can get awesome discounts on all your comics and comic related merchandise, and we thank them for their sponsorship.
Absolutely.
Aaron, what is your Buster rating for this week's episode out of a scale of 1 to 5? I don't think we ever really say that explicitly, but it is out of 1 to 5.
And people think there was really harsh graders. Like, I never give over a 5. This 10 scale's terrible. What are they like one?
And they're really into Buster Poindexter for some reason.
Why am I so exhausted when I say these sentences out loud? I would go with a strong 3.5 Busters out of 5. I have already kind of mentioned what I dislike about the episode. I mean, what it comes down to is I think there are the 2 very good scenes, a scene that really shocked me in an emotional capacity, and the acting really rose up what I think is otherwise a fairly okay script into something more acceptable. So I'm sticking with a 3.5.
Jim, what did you think of this week's episode?
I give this a 4 out of 5, mainly because the kind of grimness and the brutality and everything, that's kind of is what a lot of the subtext of what The Walking Dead is about, both in the comics and in the show. I mean, it's a grim situation. It's about, the whole story is not about the zombies. It's about the people dealing with the situation, after the zombies have come. And this is definitely, as we mentioned, it's reflective of a storyline in the comics in some ways, and it just is harsh and brutal. And I can't believe that this was being put out on a broadcast channel. I mean, I know AMC is cable or whatever, but it just seemed like really not beyond the pale so much. It's just something that I didn't think they would go there, as it were, but they did. And thematically, I'm glad they did because it fits in totally with the storyline. And we got to see some more character building with Tyrese and Carol. That whole thing got resolved as far as her killing the 2 people who were sick, Tyrese's girlfriend or wife or whatever. That got resolved in this episode. I don't know. Just this is definitely. I know we keep saying this. The episode people are talking about around the water cooler, but I mean, it shocked me with its brutality and its grimness and its dark subject matter. So, despite misgivings I might have here and there with the script and some of the dialogue in places seeming clunky, and Aaron makes a good point about sometimes there's plotline shorthand, as it were. I still give it a 4 out of 5.
As for me, it's always tough whenever we do these Buster ratings. You think about when you go to a movie and maybe you thought that movie was awesome in theaters, and you go back 6 months later and watch it on Blu-ray, and it was good, but it wasn't as good as you remember. Or you saw a movie in theaters and it was okay, but then you eventually see it again on Netflix, and that movie was actually really good. It's tough without the space for hindsight to actually know in the big picture how much you did or did not like an episode. And I say that to say, after watching this episode, and I then went back and rewatched it afterwards, I think this is my favorite episode of the TV show thus far. I understand your misgivings, Aaron. I understand the points I've heard from various people, but for me, I was engaged the entire episode. I thought it was fantastic. And maybe in 6 months I look back and go, it was okay, but it wasn't my favorite. But 24 hours later, I think this is my favorite episode of the show so far. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
It makes me curious and terrified about rewatching the entire series, just because I know what I've rated episodes in the past, and I know I've probably gone higher than I might have now, just given how the show's evolved or what I recognize about the show more than I would recognize earlier on depending on the capacity of reviews that I'd be doing just on my own accord for movies and other TV shows and whatnot. So but I did because I say this because I rewatched Clear this afternoon before recording this podcast just because I wanted to, because I know Scott Gimple wrote that episode, and I hold that one up as my favorite of the series. And it just feels apparent to me what's different from that episode and this episode. And I don't know, I don't know why what's going on differently, where I can recognize the strengths of one episode over another, where I can just clearly see what makes me like something more than another thing. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of strengths in both places and throughout the series, and we need to see where it goes as the season ends, and maybe I can have an even better approximation of what I think overall of some of these episodes and what the build up to the end point that we're going to get to has been.
Absolutely. Jim, what do our listeners on Facebook think? If anybody hasn't checked it out already, if you head to Facebook and search for Walking Dead TV Podcast, we have a group there where you can join up. There's a whole bunch of people, tons of great discussion before, during, and after every episode, all kinds of Walking Dead stuff there. So if you're a fan of the show and you're a fan of Walking Dead, again, you're listening, so I assume so, absolutely you should head over to Facebook, check out the Walking Dead TV Podcast Facebook group, and there we allow our listeners to also give Buster ratings. So Jim, why don't you read some of them for us? Yes.
And I would also like to thank oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I'm going to try to butcher his name or not either.
Shaylin Benesavinga, I believe.
Thank you. I'll leave it to you because that way you can get mad at one of us. For the meme too about me reading off the Buster ratings, I thought that was very, very funny as well. I was very touched to have never been included in a meme before like that. So
He's batting 1,000 right now, which means you have nowhere to go but down, sir.
You're gonna need to send him a no prize or something. Jordan's getting hungry and angry again. Anyway, we do have a lot of fun in the Walking Dead TV podcast Facebook group, as Jordan was saying. We also post a lot of news. We have a lot of discussion. We even have a spin-off now of the Things and Stuff spoiler Walking Dead discussion group that Mike Jones from this Facebook group spun off. So if you've read that,
Jim, that is the Stuff and Fangs Walking Dead comic TV spoiler discussion page.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much for the entire Stuff and Fangs. I'm sorry.
Stuff and Fangs.
I did not pronounce it correctly. Thank you.
I'm winking at Mike Jones through the podcast microphone right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to get in the way of that. Anyway. Stuff and Things is a spinoff, but the Walking Dead TV podcast is our Facebook group, and a lot of cool discussion, news, and fun stuff going on there. This week's episode, Phil Purd, 3 out of 5 T-Dogs. For the second episode in a row, they advanced the story by having intelligent characters make stupid decisions. Last episode, Daryl was careless at the door, and then Carol and Tyrese kept leaving the kids alone. So something I think that we touched on when we were talking in our discussion of the show, whether they should have left her alone with Mika and the baby altogether. Leo Cavallo, 5 out of 5 extra crispy walkers, with the Colonel's secret to our recipe, I'm sure. Susan Monk, 4.5 out of 5 psychotic little girls. I like what they did with the story from the comics. Look at the flowers. Mike Jones, as we mentioned, a 4 CGI deer out of 5. Tyrese says best episode so far. 2 out of the 3 kids I want off the show are finally gone. Ouch, dude.
Does he have it out for Judith or Carl?
Harsh. Oh, he doesn't say. I don't even know if I want to ask. Sarah Ann Howard, 4.75 out of 5 mice in the box. Wow, I really like this one. Great work by both adult actors. Max Sofer, 4.5 pecans out of 5. That was really good, and it managed to get those 2 off the show at the same time. Whoa, guys, that's kind of harsh, man. Those are little kids. Lisa Gonzalez, 4 out of 5. Tyrese is having a really bad day. Love to tie into the books. I had a feeling it was going to be handled with these 2 girls, but I think they did so much better in the show than in the books. Interesting. Michael Santana with the pull of the trigger. Carol becomes my favorite character. 4, yay, Lizzie is gone out of 5. Wow.
It's not child hate.
Yeah, no doubt, man. 3.9 Nutcrackers out of 5 from Craig DeMonda. Trishel Tara Collins, 4.75 out of 5. Griselda Gundersons. Carol is
Again,
the woe man.
best name ever.
Yeah, no doubt. Brent Jones, 3.95 Mouse Munchies out of 5. Roger Austin, 4.5 Blood Soaked Hands out of 5. Another solid character development episode. Mary Turbeck, 4 out of 5 Lethal Flower Arrangements. I really like this episode, by far one of the best in the second half of the season. Hezron Nack, 4 out of 5, some of the dialogue was kind of weak. A few times I scratched my head. People don't talk like that. The scene at the kitchen table was very good, though. Sarah Ann Howard turned in that the dialogue did not bother her. Harold Turk gives it 4.25 Damien Thorns out of 5. Oh. That's a reference to The Omen, isn't it? I really enjoyed the episode. However, the parenting, quotes, of the 2 girls was more than a little suspect. Lizzie steps off the train to Crazy Town. Quick, let's have her babysit. Robert Nigro's 5 flowers to look at out of 5. I loved how Lizzie was worried that she was in trouble because she pointed a gun at Carol out of panic, and not because she murdered her sister. Yeah, I totally agree, Robert. Cherry Bernard, I'd give it about a 4. Once Lizzie and Nico were left alone, and I saw Tyrese and Carol walking back, I had a feeling of what was going to happen. Brian Fuqua, 4 oddly comfortable deer out of 5. I'm still shivering from Lizzie's line. I was just about to do it to her, too. Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Shaylin Benesavinga, 3.75 Rat Snacks out of 5. Sometimes you wish an episode wouldn't end. Not this one. It was hard to watch. The writing and acting were good, but damn, that was dark. Daryl Taylor from the Taylor Network of Podcasts, who I do a show with called Nothing's On All About TV, if you want to check that out. I give 3 out of 5. I saw the end coming a mile away. I need some stuff to happen now. Jeez, dude. Okay.
I'm pretty sure a lot of stuff and things happened in
And
this
things.
episode.
Yeah, stuff and things. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't think predictability was a problem. I mean, obviously, something. It's not like nothing was not going to happen with one of these little girls, given how the episode was going. So whatever.
Daryl's notoriously grumpy.
If there's a thing out there, he will find a way to hate it.
Yeah.
Or thing.
Or things. He hates things.
He was the original originator of the Player Haters Ball. Luke Smith, 5 out of 5 for me. I love this episode. Happy to see the character of Carol continuing to grow / evolve. Richard Chopper Cherry Charrington, nice tag. 4 zombies playing Tick out of 5. Very powerful episode. Well done for having the balls to screen an episode like this. Shane Jenkins, 3. Who the hell puts a baby in a crib next to an unprotected window during a zombie apocalypse? Out of 5. Wow. I'm not a huge fan of this episode, to be honest. The only thing I'm glad of is they incorporated a scenario from the comic. And SB Barrera, 3 smoke clouds out of 5. This is the first episode where, having read the comic, spoiled my enjoyment of the episode. It totally moved away from my thought. I thought they were going Lizzie letting herself get bit in order to turn to bring in line with the comic. I'm thinking the fire is at the shack that Beth and Daryl burned down. And that's our Buster thread for the Walking Dead TV podcast Facebook group. Join us and comment and catch all the news and reviews and a lot of fun talk and cool things and stuff and things going on there.
Notice that none of us complained about the lack of action in this episode.
Which was, I'd say, a medium amount.
There's action going on, but yeah, I don't think none of us had anything to say.
Zombie kill the episode definitely had to be the zombie Q. It was smoking Cajun blackened zombies.
Well, considering those were the only zombie kills in the episode, yes, I'd say they would by default have to win. Aaron, I know you want to talk about Season 2, Episode 2 of the Walking Dead Telltale video game, which just came out recently.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, I mentioned this last week, but yeah, the Episode 2 of Season 2, or Chapter 2, whatever they're doing. The next chapter in the Season 2 of the Walking Dead video game has come out, and it's once again fantastic. It might be the best episode of this game so far.
I have not played it yet. I've been behind, but I hear good things.
Given the constant praise that I've given this game and how much I love it, how much it's my favorite version of taking in The Walking Dead in some form, that's, I think, high praise. The storytelling's fantastic. I think the voice acting's tremendous. The way they've harnessed how you play this game at this point is it's evolved in a great way where you just feel like you're always part of the action that's going on, even though it's constantly about dealing with conversations with other people and making decisions, not necessarily running and gunning all the time. Although there is a share of action and edge of your seat moments in terms of what you have to do in this particular episode. But yeah, completely recommend once again The Walking Dead video game.
Also, the Fables video game from Telltale, which follows the same,
Wolf
kind of,
Among Us, yes.
same kind of pattern, is also really awesome. Episode 2, really, really good.
I haven't played the latest chapter yet, but I definitely want to get caught up. It's been really spot on and great so far.
I wanted to point out another thing too. There's for people in the LA area. Did I mention this before? No, there's a thing called the Week of Ladies of Horror. It's a movie marathon going on at the end of the month, March 29th, that's a Saturday, where we're going to be playing, and it kind of involves zombies to an extent. So we're going to be playing, they're in Hollywood out of theater. They're going to be playing Drag Me to Hell, Night of the Comet, and Christine. scene back to back with guests and prizes and all kinds of stuff. And friends of mine, they're out there and they quite a bit. Jimmy O from JoeBlow.com and Jason Coleman, they're hosting this event, and it's going to be quite cool. It's a fun horror event, so I figured that ties into the Walking Dead TV podcast to an extent, along with the fact that Night of the Comet is kind of a zombie movie. But yeah, so if you're in the LA area, just Google search Lethal Ladies of Horror, and I'm sure you can find it and find tickets if you want to go.
Very, very cool. So we're going to close out the episode now, but after that, we're going to, of course, look forward to next week. We're also going to have a short spoiler discussion about the same storyline that happened in tonight's episode, or last night's episode, how it played out in the comics, which was both very similar and very different at the same time. So if you want to hear that, stick around. We'll probably talk about that first, and then next week's episode. But until next week, you can contact us by calling our voicemail line, 972-798-3830. That's 972-798-3830. Just let us know that you're calling for the Walking Dead TV podcast. Or you can send us an email, comments at walkingdeadtv.com. Check out hhwlod.com or walkingdeadtv.com for all of our great shows like Half Hour Wasted, The Long Box of Doom, The Black Box, out now, brand new shows, Jersey Shore. It's not even really brand new anymore. I should probably remove the term brand new. But what is brand new? The Ecopod Cranecast, or Shaken Not Stirred, our brand new James Bond-centric podcast, or the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast. Basically, if it's nerdy, if it's out there, we've got a show about it, and you'll probably enjoy it.
This is actually the 3-year anniversary of Out Now There and Abe this week.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, we're closing on our 150th episode, but it is technically our third year of doing the show. So.
Congrats.
That is awesome.
This will be a day long remembered.
At least until the 4th anniversary. You can follow us on Twitter at WDTV Podcast and at HHWLOD_network. Aaron is at Aaron's PS4, AARON PS4.
Yes,
I guess there is. Is there an apostrophe? I guess you can't do that on Twitter.
No, yeah, you can. Yeah.
So Aaron's PS4. Jim is at Yoda Jones. No S's, no apostrophes, except the S in Jones, of course. And I'm at Jordan FRM Jersey. No S's at all, which is good if the S on the keyboard is broken for some reason.
There's an S in Jersey, I believe. But...
Well, I'm not a smart man. So until there's no more room left in hell and the dead walk the earth, remember, ain't many guys travel around together. I don't know why. Maybe everybody in the whole damn world is scared of each other. Have a good week, everybody. And if you'd like another reference, read a book. So let's talk about the Ben and Billy storyline from the comics. And I should say right now, I haven't looked this up. I'm doing this from memory of reading it several years ago, but one of my favorite subplots from the comic. We did have Ben, I believe, in the show. We had, if you remember in the TV show, when Tyrese and Sasha got to the prison, they were with Alan, Donna, and their son, I believe Ben. In the comics, you also had Alan and Donna, and you had their twin sons, Ben and Billy, but they were much younger. Probably even younger than Nika, I would say, like maybe 7 or 8, somewhere in there. This is all pre-prison, I believe?
Yeah.
We're very early, because we're on the road, I believe, when this happens.
Yeah.
I thought it happened when they were in like the Woodland Hills or whatever, the suburban area they were in before the prison.
That's quite possible, and would make sense. And I believe by that point, or by the point where we're talking about, Alan and Donna were already dead, or at least Donna maybe. But so you have these two young boys, and I don't think they really went the mental illness route that the show did, or at least not as strongly. It was more just, these are two young children, like I said, even younger than Mika, who just don't understand what's happening. But either Ben or Billy, I believe it's Ben kills Billy. And it's right down to the same
You're correct,
quote
yes.
from the show.
Ben does kill Billy, you're correct.
Where it's, don't worry, he'll come back, I didn't damage the brain, or I didn't hurt the brain. Because he just thinks his brother's going to come back, and, it's walkers, what's the big deal? It's just a different way of living. And again, from my memory, the adults aren't really sure what to do, and I think they lock up Ben in a truck for the night, and they kind of say, we'll deal with this in the morning. By the time morning comes around, though, Ben is no longer alive because Carl sneaks out in the middle of the night and basically tells his dad later, you guys couldn't come to a decision, you didn't know what to do, you didn't want to do the right thing, so I did it instead. And it's Carl who does what Carol does in this episode. So used to very different results, because, the thought, I mean, it's terrible what Carol had to do, but you understand as an adult, this is just the type of thing that she might have to do at some point, whereas with Carl, this was a major, oh my gosh, is something wrong with Carl, or is he awesome, or a combination, but just kind of a big WTF moment from the comics, as different than what's here, but I really liked how they used it in both places.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing where, like, I don't get crazy excited about the show, like, syncing or directly tying into the comics necessarily, but I do acknowledge it and give it a nice salute when it does. And yeah, the show has done a good job kind of leading itself up to this similar points with obviously different outcomes, different characters, different contexts in general. But I mean, it's nice. It's kind of my almost preferred way to see it happen, where you see elements of the comic come to life in this TV show, but from entirely different perspectives or characters or whatnot. So.
I hate to use the term because, I mean, commercially it gets so saturated, but it is like a remix.
Yeah.
It's like you're taking these themes and these ideas and kind of turning them around and putting them in a different context in different situations. With, I mean, it's like when we saw when the governor in charge of the prison. I mean, some of those shots were taken right frame for frame from the comic, but the context and the situation were entirely different. So I appreciate that, because if it were slavish to the source material, it would be boring to watch, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, obviously some of the people that comment on the reviews of this episode are like, oh, I saw this coming because I remember the comic one. I mean, yeah, it's obviously if you're a comic reader, you'll be able to, and you know the material, you'll be able to kind of get into the right mindset and understand where things are headed. But I still appreciate a show not, as you said, being a slave to the comic and just kind of referencing it in the ways they can.
I was actually wondering while watching the episode if they were going to twist it a little bit. Obviously before we found Mika's body in the episode, but they were building Mika up so much earlier on, and granted that's also to make you feel sympathy for her when she's later killed. But it would also work if they did what I kind of for half a second thought they might, which is have her kill Lizzie or some other twist on it like that, because you're expecting, if you're a comic reader, Lizzie to kill Mika or Judith. Reversing it for some reason, because Mika also has issues, it seems, like not, or had, I guess would be more technically correct, even if they're not as severe as her sisters. It was clear that something was a little off with her, as adorable as the actress is. And I'm talking about the way she is very loquacious, like she has a great vocabulary, which I was amazed at. But I was wondering if they were going to do something like that to mess with us a little bit.
I mean, yeah, if my Carol theory is not coming to fruition, then there's not too many tricks up its sleeve that I can believe the show might have. So.
So that's it for the spoiler discussion. Let's talk about next week's episode. Again, if you don't want to know anything about next week's episode, even the very vague description we have from AMC, tune out now, we'll talk to you next week. But the episode 415 is titled Us, or possibly US. We can talk about that more in a week or two. But episode 415, Faith becomes a survival tool for some fighting to stay alive. And we know from things we've seen that this will be, at least in part, a Daryl episode. And we might remember they were in that funeral home last week, and the car that kidnapped Beth, or took Beth away with it, had a cross in the window. So cross, Faith, maybe we'll see some Beth in there as well.
Pope-mobile.
Pope-mobile, yes.
Oh, man.
It's Cardinal Glick.
It's the bishop.
So that's it for this episode. Have a great week, everybody. And just look at the pretty flowers.
Well, I'm so glad you guys did the Mortal Kombat commentary. I can't wait to listen to that.
Oh, that was a fun one. It's very.
That's one of my favorite TV movies from that time. So
it's a lot rowdier than our normal commentary because we got the other. I was in the same room with the two guys I was doing it with. And Abe was
cool.
on the thing with us also, and they're part of the NSFW Gamer podcast, which is it's more explicit than normal.
a little bit. Well, I mean, they call themselves that. I would mention they would be. Yeah.
Red Letter Media just released a Ghostbusters 2 commentary track. So I haven't seen Ghostbusters 2, but they decided to Netflix, so I'll have to. I can't decide if I want to just watch it with the commentary or watch it first without.
You've never seen Ghostbusters 2?
I hadn't seen Ghostbusters until about 6 months ago.
I recall.
Yeah, watch it without first.
Yeah, watch it without.
Yeah, definitely.
Listen to Bill Murray tell jokes before you listen to other people talk about why Bill Murray's jokes are presumably not as funny, even though I don't understand the logic. Whatever.
I assume they're fans of the movie if they're doing
The
the
phrase not funny and Bill Murray do not belong in the same sentence. I mean, even the movie about the elephant was funny.
I'm talking more just because these guys and what I know they like the Relevant Media guys, not because they're doing comedy. I understand you just did Mortal Kombat, not because it's an tour of
Oh, I don't know about that.
I did it because I like the movie. I still call it the best video game adaptation into a movie there's been. So.
It's super fun. I mean,
It's just, but yeah,
Christopher Lambert is Raiden alone sold that movie to me. You know, he's like, ha ha. You know, that's like half the movie. He's like, ha, like he's tricking you with some sort of zen, but actually he didn't say anything.
As far as Ghostbusters 2, there's a weird contingent out there that just doesn't think that movie's good at all. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. There's fun to be made about it for some reason.
I was actually zoomed out, so I couldn't tell exactly where I was on the timeline.
Hey, you should really lay off that stuff, man. If you're zooming out already, not cool.
Wickets are coming back, man. I'm just assuming that's a Wickets reference, but I don't actually have any idea.
What you say in the company is what you say on the society. Okay, I'm done.
Ding, ding, ding,